Number 5 on this list is Heard Island. Heard Island is actually part of Australia, even though it is super far away from Australia. The Travel says one of the most remote territories in the world, Heard Island is considered an Australian territory even though it's located between Madagascar and Antarctica. It's home to a wide range of animals such as seals, penguins, and marine birds, as well as more than 40 glaciers. There were a few reasons for closing the island to the public. First, in 2000, researchers noticed a huge lava flow coming from the island's massive volcano called Mawson's Peak. Second, Heard Island is known for its poor weather conditions. And third, it's too remote to be safe. Judge it by yourself, it's located in a minimum 2-week sail to the closest major landmass. So yeah, there are obviously tons of reasons not to go to this place and very few reasons to actually go. And the few reasons to actually go, it would be pretty cool to go to a place that's totally remote like this. There'd be a lot of penguins and seals and stuff, and for about a solid half hour you would think it's pretty cool. After that half hour though, I don't think that you'd be about it. The weather is horrible here and it's going to be extremely cold. So you could easily get swept up in a bad storm that would make it impossible to leave the island. This is also one of the better case scenarios because alternatively you could have the volcano erupt. On the bright side, you wouldn't be cold anymore if that happened, but you'd also be very dead. I also looked at some pictures of this place online and honestly guys, there really isn't that much to it. Like if the place was like picturesque and there was beautiful stuff here, then I could see an argument for it, but that's actually just not the case. Like it's kind of just a small plot of land in the middle of nowhere. And even by looking at the photos, I felt like I was getting cold. The island is banned for a reason, so stay away guys. Number 4 on this list is Monkey Island. As far as islands packed with animals, you're going to see that this isn't actually the scariest one on the list, but still, it's pretty dangerous. The Travel says a colony of approximately 4,000 rhesus monkeys live on Morgan Island, South Carolina, due to which it was nicknamed as Monkey Island. But despite what you might think, the population of primates isn't native to the island. They were relocated there from Puerto Rico due to the spreading of herpes virus B infection. Before it happened, the island was uninhabited. These days, people are prohibited by law to visit the island for their own safety as well as the safety of the monkeys. Only a handful of researchers from the National Institute of Allergy and Infectious Diseases can go there. So herpes virus B is very dangerous, guys. A lot of people think herpes and think of cold sores and, well, not a major deal, but herpes virus B, that is a very rare infection that can lead to permanent brain damage or death if you don't seek doctor's help immediately. So basically, this island is filled with a bunch of monkeys who, by themselves, could be very dangerous because they could attack us at any time, but also a lot of these monkeys happen to carry a very dangerous infection. So for good reason, the government has completely banned people from going. If you care about your health and safety, you should listen to them. Number 3 on this list is Snake Island. So we had Monkey Island, now this is Snake Island. Just the name Snake Island sounds scary as hell. Sounds like something that you'd hear about in a Scooby-Doo novel, let alone in real life. AZ Animals says, Ilha da Quimera Grande is home to Bothrops insularis. It's also known as the golden lancehead viper. This snake is a relative of the mainland's deadliest snake, the fer de lance. This snake is very noteworthy because it exists only on Snake Island. There's no other place on Earth that you can find this animal. The prevailing theory is that this species became trapped on the island after the last ice age ended over 11,000 years ago. Rising seawater immersed the land, connecting Snake Island to the mainland. The golden lancehead is very distinct. The snake has a light yellow and light brown color, especially on its underside. Also, this snake shares the same unique head as the fer de lance, a long head with a point at the nose that resembles a lance's blade. The golden lancehead snake is one of the most venomous snakes in South America. The mortality rate for people that get antivenom is believed to be up to 3%, and that number skyrockets if you don't get treatment. Even if the individual does not die, they will suffer severe damage to their body. The venom of a golden lancehead is hemotoxic. That means it attacks red blood cells and can cause all sorts of different physical problems. If a golden lancehead bites you, you will suffer from pain, internal bleeding, necrosis of muscle tissue, possible hemorrhages in the brain, and way too many other symptoms. There's a very famous story associated with this island where a lighthouse keeper and his family went here, and when people went to go check up on them a bit later, they were all dead from snake bites. Then a few other people tried to go here and they all died from snake bites too. Apparently this island is so dense with snakes that wherever you go, you have a high chance of getting bit. For people's safety, they obviously had to shut it down to the public. Number 2 on this list is Mezgori. This banned location is in Russia, and if you go here, you are probably never coming back out again. The Travel says, being the largest country in the world, Russia is certainly full of surprises. Has a lot of mysterious sites, ghost towns, and other special places. Like for example, Mezgori in the Republic of Bashkortostan. It's a closed town hidden somewhere in the southern Ural Mountains. To keep off anyone who wants to penetrate into the town or even come close to it, it's encircled by 2 battalions. It's not 100% clear what this area is and why it's surrounded, but it's got a lot of secrecy. According to most believable reports, it's a nuclear missile site that allegedly has automatic missiles that can be controlled remotely. But since government officials don't comment anything on it, we still can't be sure what's going on there. Man, you already know that if you go anywhere close to this secret Russian base, that it is guaranteed to be the last thing you do. Also, people are just guessing it's nukes, but it honestly could be something way worse than that too. Like this could totally be some evil human crossbreeding mutation lab or something like that. Or a place where they're just developing like super secret advanced weaponry that's just too crazy to comprehend. Whatever they are truly doing here, none of us will ever be allowed to find out because it is thoroughly off limits. And number 1 on this list is Poveglia. Poveglia is an island in Italy that has seen its fair share of death and tragedy. Mental Floss says Poveglia in Italy is deserted today, but it's been said that over the years 160,000 people have lived and died there. The Venetian island became a quarantine station in 1793, and for 2 decades it was a place for potential victims of the bubonic plague. So many people died there that up to 50% of the island's soil is said to contain human remains. The quarantine station closed in 1814, but Poveglia's dark history didn't end there. A mental hospital opened at the site in the 1920s, and it quickly developed a reputation for its inhumane treatment of patients. The hospital closed after a few decades, and today the overgrown island is largely closed off to visitors except for the occasional ghost hunters. Think about how much death has happened here. All of that death is what has led people to the conclusion that this place, it's haunted. And not just a little bit haunted, like I am talking deeply haunted. I mean, half the time that you take a step, you're gonna be walking over someone's dead body. This is just bound to be a spot of paranormal activity. The government has rightfully shut this place down. Unless you're a professional ghost hunter, you should not be visiting Poveglia. Number 5 on this list is La Llorona. Most people around the New Mexico area are familiar with La Llorona. She is usually described as a tall, slim woman with long dark hair, dressed in white and often crying. All That's Interesting says the most popular version of the tale features a stunning young peasant woman named Maria who married a wealthy man. The couple lived happily for a time and had 2 children together before Maria's husband lost interest in her. One day, while walking by the river with her 2 children, Maria caught sight of her husband riding by in his carriage, accompanied by a pretty young woman. In a fit of rage, Maria flung her 2 children into the river and drowned them both. When her anger subsided and she realized what she had done, she succumbed to such profound grief that she spent the rest of her days wailing by the river in search of her children. By some traditions, the ghost of La Llorona is feared. She is said to be vengeful and seize others' children to drown in place of her own. By other traditions, she is a warning, and those who hear her wails will soon face death themselves. Sometimes she's seen as a disciplinary figure and appears to children who are unkind to their parents. Apparently, children growing up in this area are taught never to walk alone without their parents near small bodies of water. That swamp water doesn't look super intimidating, but La Llorona could very easily be lurking underneath, waiting to come snatch you up. It's kind of interesting why she has chosen to do this in the afterlife, though. Why? One would think that after she killed her own kids, she would feel regret and not want that to happen to anybody else, but instead, she's doing the opposite. Maybe because she can't be a happy mother or parent anymore, she feels like no one should be allowed to be a happy parent or mother and wants to steal the children away because of that. Whatever her true motivations are, all you need to know is that she is evil and sick, and having your kids walk beside any body of water without direct supervision, it's not a good idea. Number 4 on this list is Teratorns. Teratorns are like the birds that you would envision to be living in hell. Whenever any cartoon or movie shows hell and there's a bird in it, that bird is very similar to what a Teratorn would look like. La Cruces says, on July 19, 2007, La Cruces resident Dave Zander, who had lived near the Donza Ana Mountains for more than 30 years, reported something that has haunted him ever since. 2 enormous bird-like creatures with wingspans at least 20 feet wide gliding along the Organ Mountains. There is nothing like them on modern record, though sightings throughout New Mexico have been reported since the late 1800s. Cryptozoologist and author Ken Gerhard said he believes the creatures sighted by Dave were surviving prehistoric raptor-like creatures called Teratorns. These flying monsters are believed to have occupied the area as recently as 6,000 years ago. Well-preserved remains have been discovered in caves and isolated ravines, lending credence to the belief, though many scientists are skeptical that these creatures still exist. I too am skeptical that these creatures still exist. I mean, how is it possible that we've gone so long without seeing them in our world if they're that big? Maybe it's because they are living in hell. Like I said, these birds could totally be servants of the devil in my opinion. Could I believe that they never really went extinct, they just got transported to hell instead? Sure I could, that could totally make sense. Maybe these monstrous birds have been there all along, and these few sightings have been when they were sent into our world to accomplish some type of devilish mission. It's just a guess, but it might explain what's been going on. Number 3 on this list is Eureka Mesa. So this isn't actually a singular demon or, well, a demon at all. It's actually a place. Philmont says, Eureka Mesa is a large mesa on the property of Philmont Scout Ranch. The mesa has a long history of mythical and supernatural associations dating to the local indigenous tribes, some of whom believed it to contain the gateway to the underworld. There exist a variety of other more recent ghost legends, some from the land's Mexican occupants, others from those in the cattle trade who used it as a winter home for their livestock, and still others from the early days of the area's use as a Boy Scout ranch. These involve, among other themes, unexplained blue lights, wandering murderous monks, amorphous horsemen dressed in black, and a lost scout. The mesa has a number of other more worldly peculiarities to which some of its mystique may be attributed. These include the presence of a large quantity of lodestone which serves to disorient the compass of anyone who ventures too close to it, the mesa's vastness and complete flatness making it easy to become lost, and the shape of a skull which adorns its topmost area which is visible on a topographic map. It also has the highest incidence of lightning strikes of any place in the state, making it highly dangerous to be atop it during a storm. People who have lived in this area for a long time believe that there is an entrance to the demon world here, and based on everything that goes down there, I might believe them. There isn't just one demon who wanders around here, but there are multiple. I recommend booking your camping excursion somewhere else, folks. Number 2 on this list is Skinwalkers. Definitely one of the more dangerous demons to encounter in New Mexico. Cryptids fandom says, in many Native American legends, a skinwalker is a person with the supernatural ability to turn into any creature they desire. To be able to transform, legends sometimes require that the skinwalker wears a pelt of the animal. In most cases, this pelt is not used in modern times because it's an obvious sign of them being skinwalkers. It's a common theme found throughout cultures all over the world and is referred to as shape-shifting by anthropologists. These creatures are cited interestingly a lot nowadays. Many Native Americans dislike the fact that skinwalkers appear in modern media because of the superstition that mentioning them might cause them to hunt the mentioning person down. This is the same reason why they don't like talking about them with non-natives. We have done tons of videos on skinwalkers before. Stories of people being taken or barely escaping with their lives from these creatures. Stories where people will be driving down the highway and these beasts are keeping up with their car that's going over 100 kilometers per hour. These are dangerous creatures and they should not be trifled with. Be very careful if you're in New Mexico because that is one of their favorite hunting grounds. And number 1 on this list is La Mala Hora. This is a demon that you need to avoid at all costs. It's said to be a wicked and cruel demon spirit who will appear to people on long country roads late at night. Around the communities that it regularly stalks, this thing is more feared than the devil. At first, you won't even know what you're looking at. A dark lump or cloud will appear. Something completely unnatural and that defies the laws of physics as we know them. This lump or cloud will rapidly shift and change its shape and size. Now, apparently, if you look at this process for too long, then you will assuredly go insane. Your entire brain will slowly but surely turn to mush and you will be left as a shell of your former self. And as if that isn't bad enough, there's actually a lot more. The going insane thing is just one of this crazy demon's abilities. It's also very capable of hypnotizing and paralyzing you. Usually it does this right before it strikes. Once you're paralyzed, it will rush you as fast as possible, and in a blink you will be enveloped by this smoky blackness. Then, seconds later, you'll be dead, and the cloud will move on as if nothing happened. This is one of the outcomes that can happen with La Mala Hora. The other outcome involves her showing up as a human. Occasionally, this demon will appear in the form of a woman. A woman wearing all black clothing, looking like she is in desperate need of a bath. If this is what you see late at night on the road, then congratulations. It's your lucky day. You won't be killed tonight. However, don't celebrate too soon because it means that you or someone you deeply love, they're gonna be dying very shortly. So even though you don't die right there and right then, death is on the horizon. However you spin it, this demon really is the worst. If I was you, then if it's past 10 o'clock at night in New Mexico, do not be going out on any dark roads. Number 5 on this list is Troy. Troy is one of the most famous cities ever to go missing. It's actually kind of crazy how Troy just seemed to vanish off of the surface of the earth, considering how much stuff went down there. Maybe the paranormal presence played into it though. The National Geographic says Heinrich Schliemann, the German archaeologist, was in Turkey in the late 19th century on an eccentric quest. He was excavating a Tellin artificial mound that covers long abandoned settlements. The site, known as Hisarlik, was familiar to only a few specialists, but as Schliemann dug, he was pinning his hopes on finding the ruins of the most famous city in classical literature, Troy. The trouble was that Troy might not have even existed. The acclaimed Greek poet Homer popularized the Trojans and their city in the Iliad and the Odyssey, his 8th century BC epic poems. These works told the story of a 10-year war between Greece and Troy, fought by such timeless characters as the kings of Priam and Agamemnon, the warriors brave Hector and mighty Achilles. The poems tell of bloody battles, fantastic adventures, heroic deeds, and tragic consequences. But was Troy a real place? Schliemann set out to prove it was, and he did. His Sarlik is now widely accepted as the setting for Homer's epic tales. Studies have revealed that the 30-meter, 100-foot-tall mound contains not just one but 9 Troys, each built over the ruins of the one before. Today, archaeologists consider Troy the 6th counting from the bottom up to be the likeliest candidate for Homer's Troy. This city dates from around 1700 to 1250 BC, and its citizens lived in dynamic times. If you've read even the tiniest bit of Homer's epic poems or seen the movie adaptation with Brad Pitt in it, then you know that these battles were bloody ones. People died here at Troy. Like, lots of people. This death and sorrow and all of the tragedy that befell these people has certainly left behind a dark mark. Now, many people believe that these ruins are possessed by some evil and ancient spirits. The spirits of these fallen Trojan soldiers, the ones that were betrayed by the infamous Trojan horse. There is some incredible history here, and I certainly wouldn't want to tell you not to go and see it, but just be wary if you do. Number 4 on this list is Chernobyl. This one wasn't necessarily lost to time, but mainly human error. Now if you go there though, the entire place looks completely sucked of all of its life, and frankly, it looks possessed. Specifically, the city of Pripyat is the one that got it the worst. Back in the 80s, the Chernobyl power plant went wrong and everything got destroyed. The initial explosion was bad and killed a decent amount of people, but the big problem was the radiation. The radiation was nothing like we'd ever seen before. It's more than 30 years after the initial disaster and people still can't even go here for extended periods of time. The insane amount of death that took place here and the crippling impact that time has had on this place has left a lot of people believing that it's possessed. In fact, people have even taken it a step further, and some think that this could be a hiding place for the devil. Perhaps the devil was even the cause of the initial disaster in the first place, got everyone out of here, and has now claimed it as his evil lair. This is accompanied by rumors of demonic beasts running rampant throughout the area. Some people who have been brave enough to trek through here after the accident have reported seeing creatures that are unlike anything we know of. These things, whatever they are, could be servants of the devil or could be caused by the insane amount of radiation that's around this area. Radiation has been known to cause mutations, and it wouldn't be surprising if some of the animals here have mutated in some capacity. I think it's safe to say that this place is at least possessed by death, so I'd stay away if I was you. Number 3 on this list is Memphis. No, I am not referring to the United States Memphis. This Memphis is located in Egypt. The National Geographic says, Memphis, founded around 3100 BC, is the legendary city of Mins, the king who united Upper and Lower Egypt. Early on, Memphis was more likely a fortress from which Menes controlled the land and water routes between Upper Egypt and the Delta. By the 3rd dynasty, Saqqara had become a sizable city. It fell successively to Nubia, Assyria, Persia, and Macedonia under Alexander the Great. Its importance as a religious center was undermined by the rise of Christianity and then of Islam. It was abandoned after the Muslim conquest of Egypt in 640 AD. Its ruins include the Great Temple of Ptah, royal palaces, and a colossal statue of Ramses II. Nearby are the pyramids of Saqqara. So clearly there has been a lot of important Egyptian and honestly world history that went on here. So why did it eventually get forgotten about? Well, lots of people have pointed to a possession of some kind. Some people have theorized that prior to Alexander the Great taking it over, the previous rulers put a curse upon the city if it fell to another ruler. Poor crop yields and just overall bad luck would come to the new rulers of this land, and eventually they'd have to leave the city. Whether this is true or not, we're never gonna really know, but some people who have visited the ruins have spoken about the paranormal presence that they felt. Many of them have reported something just feeling off. They haven't been able to necessarily put their finger on it, but it's as if some sort of presence is constantly watching them. Maybe this place is actually possessed. Number 2 on this list is the SS Airfield. This is one of the most interesting and creepy stories I've ever heard, honestly. Interesting Engineering says Homebush Bay used to be home to various shipbreaking operations during the mid-20th century. Various wrecked hulls remain in the area, including the most famous of them, the SS Airfield. The ship was built and launched from the UK in 1911 and later registered as SS Airfield in Australia in 1912 as a steam collier. It transported supplies during World War II and returned to service as a steam collier post-war until it was decommissioned in 1972. Most of its superstructure was reclaimed and scrapped during the 1970s, but shipbreaking operations ceased in the same decade, leaving the hull to float ominously in the bay. Nature has since reclaimed the ship, creating an amazingly beautiful yet creepy abandoned shipwreck. So now we just have this super creepy boat floating around with no one manning it or doing anything. Tons of people have speculated throughout the years that there is some type of ghostly presence that lives here now. That throughout the time that this ship has been abandoned and left to rot, a spirit of some type has come and taken over the ship, and now we're not going to be getting it back anytime soon. I'm kind of cool with that, honestly. As long as the spirit minds its business and we don't bother it, kind of cool having a floating ghost ship, you know? Number 1 on this list is the Pacific Submarine Fleet. This is a submarine base located in Russia that was actually initially supposed to be for nukes. Interesting Engineering says the Pavlovsk Soviet-era nuclear submarine base was built between the 1960s, was abandoned and left unfinished in the 1980s. It's thought to have been built to serve as a nuclear bunker to protect the Soviet Union's precious nuclear submarines. The base features 2 large tunnels to house submarines with a maze of much smaller ones for personnel. Today, it still remains abandoned and can often be found with frozen water in the submarine docking areas. This place is super creepy apparently, and a lot of people have talked about those smaller tunnels having something in there that you wouldn't want to run into. It just feels fitting though that an abandoned base in Russia, like fully in the middle of nowhere, would have something evil about it. No one knows exactly what is possessing this space, but they're pretty sure that something is there for sure. There have even been rumors of some people going to investigate this place a few decades ago and never returning.